Hello and welcome to Sujata's Cognitive Classroom. So in this video, we will be looking at the 16 personality types because again, we need to set a few things up before we can dive into them. Do you know your personality type? If you don't, go to humanmetrics.com and they have by far the best personality test. It's a simple one and you can identify your personality type or reach out to me. I can help you do a proper assessment of your type. Anyway, so the 16 personality types are, have you heard these four-letter words? Four-letter personality types, which are ENFP, ENTP, ESFP, ESTP, ESFJ, ESTJ, ENFJ, ENTJ. Those are all the E's. Now the same with I. INFP, INTP, ISFP, ISTP, ISFJ, ISTJ, INFJ, INTJ. You must have noticed the commonalities. It is just 4 letters and each of those letters can be either E or I, N or S, T or F, P or J. One thing though, don't judge anybody's personality types using these letters. They're very misleading. The right way to understand someone's personality type is to understand the whole system together. Each of these letters by themselves, yes, they do tell a part of the story, but that's like describing the elephant, 3 blind people. And so the best way to understand people is through cognitive functions. And it's a little bit of a longer route, but it is worth it. And it's anyway the right way to do it. So in this lesson, what we're going to be doing is looking at each personality type, and I'm going to assume for all the rest of the videos that you do know your personality type and you kind of have a sense of what it really means. So I'm going to skip those and I'm going to come to how your cognitive functions work for your psyche. All right. So let's start with ENFP. Who is an ENFP? An ENFP is a champion, cheerleader. A very enthusiastic evangelist of ideas, an excellent brainstormer, and who can see patterns across areas, typically multidisciplinary people, young at heart and quite childlike. So the ENFP, this is all the good stuff. The bad stuff, chaotic. Don't stick to schedules, can't be punctual, won't be punctual, cannot keep up a routine, and not systematic thinkers. So while they can be empathetic towards people, and they aren't good system builders. Okay, they are not good empirical theoreticians, let me say. Some of them are actually good system builders. They build systems for people, not so much maybe engineering systems. So what characterizes an ENFP? An ENFP is characterized by extroverted intuition, that's NEFI, introverted feeling. And then there's everything else. Okay, I'll pick up one more. Extroverted thinking. So just remember these 3 things, okay? Because these are where the positive aspects of this personality type come through. Although the first 4 functions make up our conscious cognitive stack, the first 3 are the ones that contribute to who we are for most of our lives. It's only during the old age or if you've gone through immense trauma that the inferior or the 4th position gets integrated. Most of us Even our fourth position is a bit gray and quite shadowy. Actually, it's the gateway to our shadow function. So the fourth position is also not very strong. In fact, it's a pain. So, but for this video, I'm going to focus on our good side, right? And our positive contribution and our better selves. So for an ENFP, that would be NEFITE. What does NE mean? They're open-minded. They're good brainstormers. They seek perspectives. They will listen to people. They'll accept a wide variety of perspectives without sitting on judgment on them. They're okay to listen to many different points of view, and they don't feel the need to disagree with them. They're okay to let everybody have their point of view, and they're okay to listen to them and not take a judgment call on any of them. That's NE. That's why they're also multidisciplinary. That's why they're also perspective seekers and good brainstormers. And because they seek perspectives from so many different places, their connections build quite naturally. They're pattern seekers in the big tapestry. Okay. NEFI. Now that they've taken in all this information from outside, that's why they interact with the world very naturally. They are extroverts, right? So they take in all this information. And what do they do with it? They are guided by the second function, which is the FI. The FI basically tells them what is my internal value system. Now, ENFPs are in some ways their own people. They march to their own beats. They don't follow a lot of social norms. They don't align with society very easily. They're not rebels, but they have a very strong individual point of view on things. So all the information that they took in gets condensed into a set of personal values on the basis of which they take decisions. So you'll often see ENFPs doing things that are quite different from what everybody else is doing. That's because they take decisions based on their subjective value system, and they pay no heed to what society expects of them. In that sense, they're also awkward and clumsy and a bit socially weird, but that's just how it is. That also is what makes them brilliant in many ways, because their contributions kind of come from the left field and nobody saw it coming. TE is extroverted thinking. That's the tertiary function. And this is the eternal child. This is the very childlike function. It likes to play. And so under pressure, they are able to organize themselves. They like to stay organized. They like to direct people. They like to set systems in place for people to function efficiently. Sometimes they're not at all thorough or consistent about their structural frameworks. That means they're organized sometimes, and when they're organized, they're very, very organized. And when they're not organized, they're not organized at all. So it's very hit or miss, and when it is, but it's important to them. So they hang around people who are organized, and they respect people who create structures in society and who lead the execution process, who tell people. So they like the CEOs of the world, for example. They like the visionaries. They like the system builders. They get along very easily with the architects of systems. That's because those people bring order to chaos around them. And the ENFP intrinsically understands the value of creating order. They can't do it very well themselves. Once in a while they do it. When nobody else in the house cleans up, they're very happy to clean up shelves, and it'll be a very well cleaned shelf too, very well organized shelf too, except the next time it happens will be 2 months later. So that's what I mean by something being in the tertiary function. So the extroverted thinking, which is the organizing function, is undercooked. It's there, but it's undercooked. Okay. Then the ENTPs. The ENTPs are also NE. They lead with, the same data gathering and brainstorming and so on, but they don't take decisions based on their subjective feeling, judgment, and their personal value system. What they do is they take all the information and they organize it in their minds as data structures. What that means is, what goes in is objective rational data, and they apply rational internal processes to find inconsistencies in information, to find patterns and groups in information, and to troubleshoot, to find exactly what the problem is in systems. The ENFP finds problems, they are good troubleshooters with people problems, but the ENTPs are good troubleshooters with system problems. And they solve system problems. And they build very clever multidisciplinary systems also, right? Elon Musk, for example, ENTP. I know there are others who say he's an INTJ, he's not. And then the third function of the ENTP is the FE, extroverted feeling, which is the warm, well-mannered attitude towards the world, where you wish people when you see them in the elevator, or you offer to carry a bag, or you dress up appropriately when you go somewhere, etc. The ENTP does this when they want to please someone. They see the value of pleasing the world and being aligned with the world. Right? They know to behave themselves when it matters, but they don't do it all the time. So it's very, again, half-baked. That brings us to the ESFP. The ESFPs are the performers and the big event managers and the avant-gardes of fashion, for example. They lead with SE. For them, sensory input matters. How does something look? How does something feel? How does something taste? How does something speak, I guess. So they look for sensory inputs and they observe and they have value judgments on what looks good on someone or what doesn't look good on someone or what is an appropriate fashion trend. They are fashionistas and they have their own individual point of view. Many of them are very bohemian. But they are bohemian in the space of sensory inputs. They are bohemian and they have a very individualistic point of view on sensory inputs. And then their third function is again TE, which is the organizing function, which is like the ENFP. The ESFP also has tertiary extroverted thinking, which means they organize, but every once in a while. Which means also that they like to hang around people who are systematic. That brings us to the ESTP. Like the ESFPs, ESTPs are also lead with extroverted sensing, which means that they are, by the way, ESTP are the risk takers. They are the Formula One racers. They are the salesmen. They are people who are very in tune with what's happening in the world, in the here and now of the world. They know the trends. They know, they have the latest iPhone, whatever that is, whatever model that is. They wear, dapper clothing. James Bond, right? Especially the Pierce Brosnan version of James Bond is very ESTP. So they understand trends, they understand the importance of how people perceive you and how you perceive people, and so they're very put together. But they use all this information about cultures, people, food, textures, trends, etc., and material information to come to logical conclusions, which is why they're salespeople. See, they're not the fashionistas, they're salespeople because they make logical decisions about, okay, this trend means this, and here is my opportunity to use this trend in, say, for example, to make money or to make a deal or to negotiate. So the sensory information is taken in and applied to a more logical, rational space of, say, money, business, etc. Okay, or to drive a car. ESTPs are Formula One racers. Formula One is all about taking sensory information and making logical decisions about where to turn, how much thrust to apply, and so on. And it all has to happen very instinctively. So that's why these two functions are very important. The third is FE for the ESTP, for the salesman. The third is extroverted feeling. And they're charmers, of course they are. They can tell you off, but when they need to turn on the charm, they can, and they can behave very appropriately in society when they want to. But they aren't always well behaved and always put together and always conformant to society. A salesman needs to know where to draw the line to please people for sure. And they do. They also know when to turn on the charm. And they do. And that's what the tertiary brings. The tertiary position knows to come alive when it really counts and then shut down at all other times. Then the ESFJ. ESFJs are the guardians of society. They are the mothers, the bakers, the homemakers. They're also the local politicians. They take care of people. They profess to take care of people. The healthy ones actually do. So FE, they lead with FE, taking care, behaving, following social norms, making sure everybody is heard and brought together, making sure nobody feels excluded. That is extroverted feeling. Organizing the world of feelings and people so that the most efficient way, so that human harmony is achieved. This is their primary goal. They are guided by the SI, introverted sensing, which is rituals, social norms, best practices, what has always been done, past wisdom. SI is the memory function. It is what tells us how things were, and it is routine. It is doing what you did yesterday and continue to do it today, and then continue to do it tomorrow. It is trusting the past to guide the future. And that is their parent function. That's the guiding light function, right? And that's why ESFJs are traditionalists. They're quite orthodox. They believe in rituals, and they are seen in churches, for example. They would be the pastor, the Girl Scout head or something like that. Very Boy Scout Girl Guide kind of function. And then their third function is NE, which is the perspective seeking brainstorming function. So on and off, it is, that's why they are okay with children being children and different people being different. So long as everybody follows the rules and can behave, please. Thank you very much. That is ESFJ. Then you have ESTJ. In ESFJ, they wanted to integrate people and make everybody felt heard and efficiently organize people to get work done and for there to be social harmony, right? Efficiency in organizing people for social harmony. Here, efficiency in organizing systems for social growth, development. So they are not, that is TE. It's the organizing function. It finds resources, finds structures to organize people in hierarchies, etc., so that decisions can be taken and people can take action. Things can move, things can get done. Their secondary function is also SI, just like the ESFJ, so they are also guided by best practices. And again, these are your field marshals. They follow the book of rules, SOPs, standard operating procedures, to guide them in how to be most efficient. Okay, and the third is NE. They're also open-minded when things, when there is a lot of pressure and a new strategy has to be thought of. They're able to do that, but not always, right? Because that comes in the way of following tradition. New ideas challenge tradition. They're okay to accept new ideas, but they would rather use tradition if they can help it. Okay, that's ESTJ. ENTJ. ENTJs are the CEOs and the go-getters, the movers and shakers of the world. They also lead with organizing the world outside and getting things done and focus on efficient execution. But unlike the ESTJs, they don't use best practices and rituals to guide them and the past to guide them. They use their future goal to guide them. Very big difference. Field marshals follow SOPs. CEOs don't follow SOPs, not necessarily. They use it sometimes. They understand the value of structure and best practice. That's used from a tertiary place, but the guiding light for the CEO is the future, the goal, the vision. Right? That's the difference between a commander, field marshal, and a CEO. And that's the E function. Those are the extroverts. The introverts work quite differently. The introverts lead with introverted functions, which is a bit upside down because you're not taking in any information, but you're looking inwards for guidance. So they have to have some other function that goes and gathers information. That comes from a secondary place, but their most primary, their most obvious behavior is within themselves, which is why they're introverts, right? So that would be INFP. INFPs lead with their own individual point of view. They are the writers and the authors and the poets. So obviously they have individuality. Artists and poets have to have that individual point of view. And they have it from day one. Even as small children, they march to a different tune. The INFP gathers information, patterns, data, how people think, and creates characters based on people's entire behaviors. And ISFP does pretty much the same thing, except they are the artists, except they gather sensory information. How does something look? How does something feel? What are the colors? What is the texture? What is the taste? What is the culture? Right? What are the practices that they have? And it uses that to create art and express a very individual point of view. Whereas the INFP, the writers, take in trends, patterns, cultural norms, belief systems, and expresses that to their individualities through books and poems and things like that, or even theory. Right? There are INFPs who do something like psychology is full of INFPs. So they understand broad patterns of behavior and broad theories and ideas and bring them together and condense them and take their decisions based on an individual point of view. INFPs, the third function is the SI, which is the routine function. So they kind of follow a routine in bursts and starts. Sometimes, like, they can do a marathon. They can do a marathon in midlife. A lot of INFPs get into this. Let me do a triathlon in my midlife. And that's very normal, that's very healthy. And ISFPs, on the other hand, would want to drive towards a goal in midlife. They will set themselves a goal and they will a vision for themselves. They will identify who they want to be and what is going to be their legacy. And they will work towards that. That's why many artists sort of come to a very concrete place and have a concrete offering by the time they're in their 40s. Until then, they're sort of searching around. ISTJs and ISFJs lead with SI, which is, for them, the first thing and the most important thing is how things have been done so far. Best practices. Rules that cannot be broken. Inspectors, police, law enforcement. That's ISTJs. ISFJs are nurses, caregivers. If the medicine must be taken on time, it must be taken on time, and we will not debate that. And they are extremely reliable routine keepers, secretaries, executive assistants. They will follow the rule book and the standard operating procedures to the T. They will read the manual and execute the manual perfectly. The ISTJ on the other, and ISFJ are different in that the ISTJ uses logical constructs and rational constructs. The ISFJ uses value systems and feelings to determine what's important. So an ISFJ would be a nurse and take care of people and make sure that people are taken care of through routine. The ISTJ will make sure that people are taken care of through structures, through ensuring that the account book is tallied. ISTJs are often accountants, by the way, very common. That a ruling is brought to light, or a ruling is a judgment is made based on the constitution or the rule book. So it uses past information to come to closure in the rational world, such as in a courtroom. And an ISFJ will come to that in a hospital, okay, or in a caregiver home. The ISFJ tertiary function is the TI, and that's a little harder to explain. I will not get into that in this video. An ISTJ does FI. So again, I'm not going to get into that in this video, but essentially their third function is introverted, and it is their stubborn function. Okay. And ISFP, that's done. That leaves us with ISTP and INTP, which are basically they are people who express a very strong, logically consistent structure using experiences that they have already had. But their point of view is completely independent. So that would be mathematicians, INTPs, for example, programmers, and so on, who are able to come up with novel logical constructs, no matter what society thinks. Einstein, like, well, this is what the data is telling you. You may choose to disagree with it. You may not want to accept it, but this is what the data is saying. And this is what I have arrived through my own intuition. Similarly, ISTP, Steve Jobs. This is the correct design. This is how it should be. There is no two ways about it. This is the only right way. And you can choose to disagree with me, but I know I'm right. And they are able to demonstrate why they are right too. Although they come across as quite stubborn to others, the ISTP's contributions and INTP's contributions in the world have been quite earth-shaking. Some of the good ones. Their contributions have shifted the paradigm, have changed the paradigm, because they are not afraid to stand for their own, not belief system, but for their own analytical output. And that leaves us finally with the INTJs and INFJs, who are the true visionaries. They can see what's coming way before others can, and they don't even know why. Nikola Tesla, INTJ. Bill Gates, INTJ. Carl Jung, INFJ. Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, INFJ. Nelson Mandela may be ENFJ, but that doesn't matter. They're all visionaries. They are able to see a better world and what it can be much before others can. And they will create the structures. INTJ will create logical systematic structures. INFJ will create human structures that enable that goal. And they can power through on the strength of their vision, which only they can see and only they can understand, but they're still okay to go for it. The really good INTJs and INFJs are again paradigm shifters in terms of changing the way we need to be thinking of ourselves. Women's suffrage. People who stand up for things like that are NI strong, introverted intuition strong. They are able to intuit from within themselves what a better picture, a better outcome, a better vision for themselves, for their dear ones, and for the world at large. They are guided by, so their primary focus and their dominant function is the NI, or the introverted intuition, and their guiding function is the extroverted thinking or the extroverted feeling, as the case may be. Their tertiary is the FI or TI, again, which I will, I think, relegate to another video because we're already touching almost 30 minutes. But this is how we are who we are, because our cognitive stack, our hero function, the first function, our strongest function, is what we put out there in the world. And the secondary function, which is our parent function or the auxiliary function, is what guides this and tones it down, tones the dominant function down, and gives it a path and a guidance and a way to channelize its energy, its extreme energy, into something productive and constructive. So that ends this very long video. Thank you for staying with me. If you've come this far, thank you very, very much for listening. I do look forward to your feedback. All comments and suggestions are welcome. Good, bad, ugly, anything, because I'm sure we will learn from each other. Until next time, thank you for listening.